always loved the small-town library where she worked. The building was old, its stone walls covered with ivy, and the windows let in a soft golden light in the afternoons. She found comfort in the quiet routine, stacking books, helping children find fairy tales, and watching the seasons change from the tall arched windows. Yet deep inside, she carried a quiet loneliness, one she rarely admitted even to herself. One rainy evening, as she was preparing to close, the library door creaked open. A man stepped inside, shaking droplets from his coat. He looked travel-worn, his dark hair damp, and his eyes carried the kind of tiredness that only long journeys could bring. "I'm sorry," he said, catching his breath. "I saw the light and well, do you happen to have maps? Old ones if possible." Alina hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, we have some, this way." His name was Adrian. He was an architect who had recently returned to the town after many years away. He explained that he was studying the old stone bridges of the region, hoping to preserve them before time erased their history. Over the next weeks, Adrian became a familiar figure in the library. He often sat by the large oak table, sketching bridges in his worn notebook. Alina would bring him books, and sometimes tea, though she never stayed long. Still, she noticed the way his eyes softened when he looked at her, as if he saw something she could not. One evening, as the rain tapped gently on the glass, Adrian closed his notebook and said, "Do you ever feel like some places hold memories, as if they're waiting for someone to find them again?" Alina thought for a moment. "Yes, like the old garden behind this library. Hardly anyone goes there anymore, but I always feel it's keeping secrets." Adrian smiled. "Show me." They stepped into the garden, where wild roses climbed the fences, and the stone path was cracked with moss. In the dim light, the place felt alive, whispering with echoes of laughter from the past. "This was once a meeting place," Alina said softly. "The librarian before me told stories of how people would gather here, lovers especially. They say promises made here could never be broken." Adrian's eyes lingered on her face, not the garden. "Then I should make one now," he said. His voice was low, almost uncertain, but steady enough to reach her heart. She froze, her breath catching. "What kind of promise?" He stepped closer, rain dripping from the leaves above. "That if you'll let me, I'll come here every day, not just for books or bridges, but for you. For as long as you want me to." Alina's heart trembled, caught between fear and the warmth of his words. For years, she had hidden behind quiet routines, convincing herself she needed nothing more. But in Adrian's eyes, she saw something she had not dared to believe in, a future that was not lonely. She smiled, a shy, fragile smile that carried all her unspoken feelings. "Then let's promise together." Under the rain, in the forgotten garden, they clasped hands and made a silent vow. The world outside could change, bridges could crumble, books could fade, but the garden would keep their secret. And so would they. Whispers beneath the old oak. The village of Evermere was quiet, resting between rolling hills and a silver river that caught the moonlight like a mirror. At the heart of this village stood an old oak tree, its branches heavy with centuries of whispered secrets, promises, and dreams. Beneath its shade, many love stories had begun, and one such story belonged to Clara and James. Clara was the daughter of the village seamstress, known for her gentle smile and eyes that seemed to hold the first light of dawn. She spent her days stitching dresses by the window, humming softly while the world outside carried on. was the blacksmith's apprentice. Broad-shouldered, with hands rough from fire and iron, yet a soul that longed for poetry and music. Their paths crossed on a summer afternoon. Clara had gone to the oak tree to sketch, her notebook balanced on her lap when James arrived to rest after delivering tools. He noticed her before she noticed him, her hair catching the sun like strands of gold. He hesitated, but then the wind flipped a page of her sketchbook, and he rushed forward to catch it before it flew away. Their eyes met, hers startled, his apologetic, and in that moment the world seemed to pause. From then on, the oak became their meeting place. James would bring her wildflowers tucked into his apron, and Clara would read aloud the stories she wrote in her notebook. They shared dreams there, hers of seeing the world beyond Evermere, his of building something lasting with his own hands. Slowly, what began as friendship deepened into something neither could deny. Yet love rarely comes without trials. Clara's mother, practical and cautious, worried that James's life at the forge offered little stability. Dreams don't put food on the table, she told her daughter. James, too, felt the weight of expectation. His father wanted him to give up fanciful notions of poetry and focus on the hammer and anvil. For a while, their meetings grew fewer, stolen and hurried moments beneath the oak. One evening, as autumn painted the hills in gold and crimson, Clara waited by the tree, her notebook in her lap. James arrived late, stood still on his hands, but determination burning in his eyes. He knelt before her and placed a small wooden box in her hands. Inside was a delicate pendant, shaped like a leaf from the very oak they sat under. "I carved this for you," he said, his voice unsteady. "It isn't gold or silver, but it's a piece of me. And if you'll have it, it's my promise that no matter how hard the world tries to pull us apart, I'll always find my way back to you." Tears filled Clara's eyes as she touched the pendant. "I don't need gold, James. I just need you." The oak bore witness as they sealed their vow with a kiss, the wind rustling its leaves as if blessing their union. Years later, when the world grew harsher and James was called away to serve in distant lands, Clara would return to that tree. She would sit beneath its branches, wearing the pendant close to her heart, and write letters she couldn't send. When James finally returned, scarred but unbroken, it was there, beneath the oak, that Clara ran into his arms, the years of waiting collapsing into a single embrace. And so, the old oak continued to stand, its branches heavy with yet another love story etched into its meaning. A story of two souls who chose each other against the odds, and whose whispers of devotion would linger in the wind for generations to come. The bridge at dawn. Evelyn had always loved the old stone bridge at the edge of town. It was quiet there, with the river gliding beneath like a ribbon of glass and the willows bowing gently toward the water. Every morning before work, she would cross the bridge, coffee in hand, and linger just long enough to watch the sunlight spill across the horizon. One morning, as she leaned against the cool railing, she noticed someone else standing there. A tall man with windswept hair, sketchbook open, pencil moving quickly across the page. He looked up, startled by her presence, and offered a shy smile. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he asked, gesturing toward the sky. "Yes," Evelyn replied, though her eyes lingered on him longer than on the sunrise. His name was Daniel, an architect who had returned to town after years away. The bridge, he told her, was his favorite place as a child, and now he was sketching it for a restoration project. Day after day, they met there, sometimes by accident, sometimes on purpose. Evelyn would bring an extra cup of coffee, and Daniel would bring stories of his travels. Their conversations grew longer, their laughter louder, until the bridge became less about the sunrise and more about each other. One rainy morning, Evelyn found him waiting, umbrella in hand. He offered it to her, letting the rain soak his shoulders instead. She scolded him for being careless, but inside, her heart trembled at his quiet gesture. Weeks turned into months. Daniel would walk her home after late shifts, carrying her bag, teasing her about her stubbornness. Evelyn found herself looking forward to every dawn, every shared silence on the bridge. Yet beneath her joy, a fear stirred. Daniel's work could take him away again. One evening, as lanterns flickered along the riverside, Daniel stopped her on the bridge. His sketchbook was in his hand, but this time it wasn't filled with buildings. Instead, it was filled with her, Evelyn laughing, Evelyn gazing at the river, Evelyn holding her coffee cup. "I don't want to just restore this bridge," he said softly. "I want to build something lasting with you." Tears blurred her vision, but she smiled through them. "Then don't leave." The river whispered beneath them, carrying their promise away like a secret shared only with the night. From that day on, the bridge was no longer just a place of passing sunrises. It became the heart of their story, where love first unfolded and where it would always return.